Going live. Live. 3, 2, 1. Going live. Live. 3, 2, 1. Om Nityanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gana Sadrusham Tatvamasya Adilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachanam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunaraitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Thank you, Swamiji, for everything. On today's show, Hindus talking about Hindumisia. So we have Sri Gyanatmaya, is called Nitya Gyanatmananda, and is born and raised in Canada. And now he was not born into Hinduism, and he's going to share his story, why he became a Hindu, right? So that's what it is. So I know he's, whenever he is ready. And so we have Gauri Bhartananda here, and we have Shantidas here. So Gauri Bharta, so what do you do? Where do you live?
I currently live in LA, and I'm a software engineer by profession.
Super.
And yeah, that's me.
Very good. Shantidas here, where do you live? What do you do?
I live in Oviedo, Florida. So yeah, I am also a software engineer by profession. Currently, I am in the senior management of a small company, startup company. That's what I do.
Oh, very good, very good. So all high tech, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So we are going to, today is a very exciting show. It's a very exciting topic, that is why I become a Hindu, where even though he was not born into Hinduism, and most of us take Hinduism for granted. And even though I was also born into a Hindu family, I'm Bhagavan Reddy, living in Dallas for, Dallas, Texas, USA for last 24 years. I was also a software engineer before. Now last 7 years we've been in, we have a business. So now I'm officially retired from software. I live in the business world. So that's totally a different world. And then we'll wait for Sri Gyanatma, Sri Nitya Gyanatmananda. And once, okay. And so here is, okay. So welcome to the show, Gyanatmananda. So we wanted to hear your story. And I'm sure you are not born into a Hindu family, are you?
No, it was a Christian family, basically.
So okay, so were you a Catholic or Protestant, or what kind of Christian denomination or the tradition you were? I mean, what denomination you came from?
Yeah, so they were sort of mostly Lutheran. And so they were sort of people coming from Scotland. They were sort of poor farmers coming from Scotland, and sort of working class coming from around Prussia and Wales and Sweden. Mostly sort of a working class farming type people, mechanical, construction oriented. So.
Oh, very good, very good. So, so what do Christians believe in terms of faith, right? So what were you believing before you became a Hindu? And we just curious, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I'm sure everyone is slightly different.
So what do Christians believe in terms of
my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, I thought, she was one of the sort of the goodest people that I knew, and for a role model. I think everyone is a little bit different. She told me that there's sort of an acceptance of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and that you sort of had to accept that in what she was telling me. But yeah, I guess one of the things I do remember is when I was a little boy, like I used to stay at her place. Like we didn't really go to church ever. I mean, I went like maybe 2 or 3 times a year. We went at Christmas and like maybe big events. But yeah, one of the things I do remember is when I used to stay at the grandparents' place, and when she used to put me to bed, she would do this prayer before we slept. She was like, let's pray. And I was like, okay, like okay, fine. And you said this thing like, I don't remember, but it was a prayer. And then you said like, if I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. And I just, it just terrorized me. I was this little kid. I didn't know what we were doing. And right before the lights went out and I was left all alone, I told someone somewhere to take my soul if I die. And anyway, that's one of the memories I have.
Oh, okay, very interesting. So what do Christians believe? So I heard, correct me what my understanding is correct. So the Christians believe that in general, in all Christians across the board, right, that you're all born sinners, and then until you accept Jesus and get baptized, you will not go to heaven. Is that my understanding correct?
I mean, I'm not really an across the board kind of guy. The thing that I can say is what I personally feel is there's a big difference between the greatness that that a being like Jesus could have been and how he could have lived. There's a big difference between that and the way that Christianity is used and abused. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it depends, right? I think when you get to the extreme evangelical and conversionist levels, then things do get very manipulative. And if you go on, there's websites like, I think it's called Hope Yoga. If you go on there and you read, they literally say that anything you do to convert someone is justified. Lying, stealing, cheating, it literally says that. Any of those so-called sins are forgiven because you bring someone to Jesus and in that sense save them. So that is written in a lot of documentation that says it doesn't, like, that's why you get in India, you see people like, there's a famous picture of 3 kavi dressed Christian priests in front of building, and they're wearing kavi dress like sannyasis. They have a big cross and they're wearing kumkum, a big kumkum. So that's why, part of the conversionist strategy in India has been to do artis, represent Jesus sitting in yoga padmasana, and there's even Jesus Sahasranama, and all these, you get temples that have a gopuram like Tirupati temple, and on top is a a cross, and you get the Dwaja stamba, you get the flagpole that is the copper coated in front of these temples. They're churches that look exactly like Hindu temples, so except the flagpole, the pole that has energetic purposes in a Hindu temple, on the top is a cross. So you get Christian churches that look exactly like temples and are temples, but they put a cross on top. So anyway, one of the things I was reading is one of those organizations, I think it was through Hope Yoga. I think it's called Hope Yoga or Jesus Yoga or something. But on their website, yeah, it references someone and one of the sort of related affiliates. And it says on their website, anything you do to convert people is forgiven, whether it's lying. So you dress like them, you do things like them, and you sort of pretend to be like them. I always thought, like, if you love Hinduism so much, you're doing pujas and you're dressing like Hindus and you're building buildings like Hindu, why don't you be, I think you want to be a Hindu. So, but yeah, there are definitely, that documentation is there. Whether it's Joshua Project. They've broken down something like 16,000 different people groups in the world, and they specifically target India as the huge conversionist possibility by percentage, and it's pretty pretty sinister actually. It breaks down people by village and what language they speak, what customs they sort of accept and don't, what deities they worship. Like they know more about Hindus than the Hindus do, and like what groups of those people eat meat or don't, and in what scenarios or festivals they do or don't, and where their susceptibilities are, and where the similarities are with sort of Christian practice. It's extremely, and it's a huge organization that has many different evangelical aspects. It's a literally multi-billion-dollar corporation targeting not only Hindus, but yeah. So when you go into those kind of things, and I think Lausanne movement is another one. But when you go and look at the planning, it's extremely targeted, and you know, they do a lot of things like they make people to break their deities when they're converting, and eat meat in order to sort of create a lot of guilt. And these are very simple, innocent villagers. So, but yeah, I mean, that our family was not like that. It was just, you know, people who were essentially trying to be good people, which I think a lot of people are just like that. They're not, you know, they're not fanatically religious I guess they're not fanatically religious trying to destroy people in the name of religion. A lot of sort of regular folks are just, regular Christians are just, they sort of talk about it. They're not, you know, 1,000% committed to, you know, changing everyone and everything. It's just something they try. It's more of a moral compass, I think, for a lot of people, regular type people. So, but yeah, when you get into the more sort of criminal aspects of malicious conversion, then yeah, it becomes extremely sinister. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I didn't know that. So we have not heard that type of things happening in Hinduism. So you are born like that, and you rarely went to the church, right? And then you learned your, the Bible or the Christian belief from your grandma, and then you are praying at bedtime, and these are all things you learned. So is that true that Christians believe that they're all born sinners?
In my experience, it has been that most people, yeah, it's an issue. It is a problem. It's a real problem. Like the powerless cognition, having a small image of yourself, is a problem. It's a problem for humanity. It's like rejecting the possibility that you can be, that you can live without limitation. That's an extreme problem for humanity. It is. And but
so they believe, the Christians believe that they are born sinners. Is that true?
I mean, I would say in my experience, what I've seen is that for the most part, yes, that's the perspective that is taught. Yeah.
Yeah. So that means anybody is born before Jesus. Let's say Jesus' grandmother or grandparents, they're all born sinners, and then they never got a chance to accept Jesus. So they're all guaranteed to go to hell. They're eternally damned, according to Christian belief.
I don't know. I never thought about it. I never thought that's a good question.
Yeah, right. But see, the belief I heard, then you need to, right? He said, you all Christians, if the whole humanity is born sinners, then until you accept Jesus and then baptized, you can't be saved. Is that true?
I mean, it's definitely not true, but
what does the Bible say?
The Bible says that Jesus is the Son of God, and he came and he died for our sins, and he came to cleanse us, and that there's no other God but him, but you are not him, and you definitely can't be God. And it's kind of like you're separate. You're not him, so you're separate from him. Like you're definitely separate. And it's weird. There's definitely not a clear, I mean, my experience is there's definitely not a clear understanding of what God is. And I think that's one of the real issues, is missing yoga is that it's essentially philosophical, and it's belief based, which is extremely dangerous. Faith based, because if your body doesn't radiate it, then you're by definition you're living violence. So
before Jesus, the only thing is then the Jews were there, right? And then so you have two types. One is the Jews are before the Jesus, and the Jesus was a Jew, right? So the Jews believed in who? Jehovah God, right? The Lord of Jehovah, right? So that means so you have two Bibles. One is the Old Testament, it's called Torah, right? And then you have other one, what is called the New Testament. That's the Christians believe. So the Christians believe in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Is that true?
Yeah, there's a lot of different groups, and there's a extremely wide range. Yeah, there's probably the entire spectrum for the most part is there. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Old Testament is the Torah, and that's a Jewish Bible, and then the Christian Bible is the New Testament, right?
You know, to be honest, I don't know exactly I don't know everything about that.
Okay, so then and then in the said, so we heard that the God created the whole universe in 6 days, and He took a day off on Sunday. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean that's what I remember. Is that was a story? Yeah, that was a story. Yeah.
Okay, that was the story. That's what we all want to know what the story was. So then, how did you describe the story? How you found Hinduism, and so that's what the thing. So you were born, Christian, and then Lutheran, and then from there you didn't go much. You didn't care much to go to church or anything, and unless it's an occasion. Then how did you find Hinduism, or before you accepted Hinduism, did you do anything else? How did you live your birth faith?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing I would say, I don't know if I don't know if I would say I've accepted Hinduism. Like, not that I haven't accepted, but that's a slightly different issue. It's more of a thing that happened. I didn't really choose it. But yeah, I don't know. I after high school, I studied in computer technology, and I got a big job with a General Electric software company after that had all the bells and whistles, stock options, top floor of a skyrise downtown, and social club, squash team, and all this. And when I got in there, I just realized that it wasn't fun. It wasn't as fun as high school. It wasn't as fun as my life. It wasn't as fun as college. And it was great to see all the people, but they didn't want to talk about anything but work. And there was a bunch of people there getting older, and all they would talk about is work. And I could sense they weren't happy having fun. And I realized it was a demotion. And so I knew I had to look for something else. And anyway, so then the only option that I knew is studies. So I went to Concordia University in Montreal for 6 years. I went there specifically for the purpose to find the purpose of life, not to graduate with anything, but to find the purpose of life. So I studied in total 14 different departments for 6 years. I got a specialized bachelor in early childhood and elementary education, which was an extremely competitive program. I was, especially for men. Anyway, and had a lot of training in that. And I came out after 6 years realizing that they don't know. They don't know the purpose of life. Like, they can teach you mathematics, they can teach you physics, biology, chemistry, anthropology, sociology, psychology, but no one there in all those institutions, McGill and all those places, no one there knows humanity. They can teach you all this stuff, but if you ask, what about humanity? Why are we here? What are we doing? What's the purpose? Nobody knows that. Not even philosophers, right? Maximum, they reference Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. So I got really stuck after that. I applied for about 70. I went back to my near my hometown in Edmonton, Alberta, and I applied for about 72 jobs at that point. And I thought, I'll get a job working in a community, doing community liaison work and stuff. And I walked in and out. I got the job interview that I wanted, and I just walked in and out of it. I didn't even answer some of their questions. It was sort of the most ridiculous interview. They asked me a couple of questions. I just didn't answer. I didn't say anything. And I walked out of that, and I just said, what did you just do? That was the job you're supposed to get. And I just had to face myself if I was going to just go on and repay my student loans and just take the money and just do the work, or I was going to answer my unanswered questions. And I just thought, I won't be able to live with myself if I don't answer my unanswered questions of, life and experiences that I couldn't explain. So I started doing that. I got a part-time job working in a group home with youth with brain problems and behavior problems. And I worked there about 4 evenings a week. And the rest of the time I started trying to learn what the purpose of life was. And so I didn't know what to do. And so one thing I had heard, I think there was an Eckhart Tolle book or something, or no, it was, it was him, but there was, I think at JFK, he said, ask not what you want from your country, but what your country wants from you. And I saw this Eckhart Tolle in one of his books. He said something like, don't ask what you want from life, but what life wants from you. And I was like, yeah, I got to do that, because I spent 6 years getting a degree what I wanted. And then the problem with the human, not being settled is you get something, then you want something else. Then you get something, then you want something else. And that satisfaction only lasts a very short period of time. So I thought, what's the solution to this? So I didn't know what. I searched for 6 years. I didn't know what it was. And I just decided, okay, I'm going to ask life, because I should ask life what I should do, because whatever I choose, it never lasts. And it's a lot of times it's bad for me. And so I tried one day. I went in my room and I sat down and I was just like, okay. And then I was like, I don't know what to do. And I just kind of looked around and I was like, okay, I don't know how this is supposed to go, but life, if you're there, if you can hear me, or can you somehow tell me what I'm supposed to do? And anyway, so that's how I started. And I had a pretty great experience. I heard this one yogi, I forget his name, but he was Baba. His name was a Baba, and he was in Kumbh Mela. I had seen a video about him, and he said, sit for 3 hours a day alone. It'll be the best thing you do. So I tried that, and when I was sitting, it was just ridiculous. I was like, I had to go eat something, then I had to listen to music, then I had to write something, then I had to, do something else, then I had to drink something. I just couldn't sit still. It was like chaos. And so I tried that for a few days, and I finally sort of got to it. And what I realized was, when I was sitting, that my mind was just racing. And what happened after a few days of trying, probably a total of like 6 hours, it was like 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours sitting. And what I realized was that my mind was replaying stuff, like memories and conversations. It was making up stuff. And what I realized in that was that I literally, in that experience, was having arguments with people in my life that never happened. And I just thought, whoa, like, myself is creating my life and my relationships that has nothing to do with other people. And anyway, so that was it. I didn't know what to do, and so I went to the library. I got some movies, because I never liked to read, and I got a Kumbh Mela video, and I got a video called Words of My Perfect Teacher that is about, I think he's a Rinpoche, and about him, a young Hindu Buddhist monk from Tibet, I think, or Bhutan or something. And then I got a video of a Christian monastery and all kinds of stuff. And I got some Dalai Lama videos, and I read Dhammapada, which is pretty great. It's a lot of really great parables. That's a great book. So I was sitting, meditating, trying to figure out what to do. And anyway, that's what I went through. And then I don't know, I was sitting, I was going through this whole thing and going through those things after a period of probably 2.5 months doing that kind of stuff. I used to get up every morning at about 6, and I read this book, something like the Power of Full Engagement. It's kind of like a psychological take on energetic life, and The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and I read all that stuff. And I used to have a morning routine. I used to go walking like 6 a.m. every morning for like a couple hours, and just, you know, trying to whatever I thought a spiritual life was. I just had to figure out what was going on, because I had really taken the wrong path, like probably thousands of times. And I was like, I got to figure out what's going on here. And so that's it. So somehow, some way, somewhere, I was sitting, and I don't know, somehow, somewhere in my life, this thing, Gita, I don't know what it was or how it was, somehow word Gita came, and I just knew something about Gita, and I was like, okay, Gita is something. So I looked on the internet, and that was like around 2007. I wasn't big in the internet, but I found Bhagavad Gita. I thought, okay, that must be the thing. So I went to a local bookstore, and I got Bhagavad Gita as it is from Srila Prabhupada, and I studied that for about 8 months. Basically, I studied that every day, night and day, for 8 months. And I tried all the meditations and stuff, and that was awesome. That was really awesome. And one of the big experiences, like I used to do the meditations that was in there, and one of the big experiences that one of the things that it said was look into the fear. It was like, focus on the end of your nose and look into the fear. And I did that. I wasn't very good at meditating, but I tried for maybe 45 minutes. And what happened was I saw the fear, and it was so big and so enveloping that I was like, well, there's nothing I can ever do about that. That's way too much. So I can just forget about me doing anything about that stuff. And so that was kind of how that happened. And I guess one of the big clicks I got from Bhagavad Gita was because the book and Srila Prabhupada, his purports and all, keeps talking about someone who's Krishna and like Lord Krishna and the divine, you know, the Godhead. And I was like, who's this Krishna? You know, and then I got to say, hey, look, I grew up, I tell you, my identity, I was an athlete, okay? From the time I was 1 year old, I was ice skating. I played ice hockey for 30 years. I was actually very good, not competitively, not professionally. I was very good. I played ice hockey for 30 years. I played badminton. I was in the top 100 in Alberta, and I played many sports. So that was my thing. And then video games growing up. Like we played sports every single day in the summer. And if it was minus 20 degrees in the winter, there was no question of us going skating. We would just decide how long. And if it was lower than minus 20, then we would call and ask when to go, because it'd be a little bit colder. But minus 20, no question, we're going. Minus 25, when are we going? So that was our thing, you know.
So you're excited.
Yeah, I mean, that was our life. That was my life. So what I mean to say is, in my whole life, I only knew Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad. That's all I knew. I didn't know.
You didn't know anything about Hinduism.
I didn't know Allah. I didn't know masters. I didn't know gurus. I didn't know yogis. I'm telling the truth. And I didn't know anything about meditation, spirituality, spiritual experience. People used to say, oh, I had a spiritual experience. No idea. No idea at all. But I had no idea that was like French to me. Like, anyway, that's just who I was. And so that's it. So Srila Prabhupada was talking about this Krishna. And he's like, and he kept saying, Krishna, you know, revealed this 5,000 years ago. I was like, wow. And then he's like, and then Krishna, and then he's I think he sometimes mentions Rama, I'm not sure, but he mentions Krishna and different masters. And they say this ancient civilization from time immemorial knows all these truths. And I was like, really? Wow. And I was like, so the one thing that this whole experience made me clear is, oh my God, whoever is Krishna, whatever Krishna is, that thing knows way more about me than I will ever know. And I was like, what is that thing? And so anyway, so I thought I have to learn more. I have to so I was like, I need a living person. Like a book is great, but how does an enlightened being put on his socks in the morning? That was a burning question for me. And how does an enlightened being brush his teeth? I need to know this important thing.
Does he look like a man, or does he look like a human being, or does he look like something else? Yeah.
So that was, because if I'm doing it wrong, I need to change. That was my main concern. And so I looked on YouTube and I found Srila Prabhupada had many videos. So I started studying all the videos. And then I basically exhausted all that. And a great thing was you can see him on his deathbed. He cannot move his body, but the clarity he has that he speaks was proof that you live beyond the body. Like if you see the last hour of his death, I think still they're transcribing his translations. I think definitely the last few hours, but you see the clarity he speaks, even though his body is almost, so that was like, wow, it's real. What he's saying is real. He's real. That was what I learned in university. No one lives with integrity. They talk, but they don't know and they don't live. They speak ideas, but they don't live it. And I just thought, we need to solve this problem. So I was doing on that thing, and then I exhausted all that. I was making a website every day. I was putting 2 links of my spiritual teaching or learnings. By that time, I studied over 100 different gurus and spiritual teachers. Nisargadatta Maharaj, and so many that I could find and learn. And so I really, and that was after 6 years in university. I got to find something. And so I went on the internet, I searched for spiritual masters, and Kumbh, something called Kumbh Mela come up. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. And
even Hindus don't know about it. So it's not okay. Even Hindus don't know what Kumbh Mela is. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, okay. So I was clicking a bit. And then on the side, this one, so this was basically after a year of intense study. And honestly, I was pretty lost. I used to just go to work and come home and study. I was so intensely needed to find things. That's all I did. I didn't really talk to people. I quit drinking at that time. I was drinking before that. I quit drinking. And so I lost most of my friends. I had to say that I wouldn't go with them because they were heavily involved in that. So for 2 months, I had to say no to every event. I tell you, if you play on a hockey team with men in Alberta, that's what they do. And so I had to say no for 2 months to all my friends to invitations because they had parties and stuff. I'm like, I can't go. I'm not drinking. I don't drink. And you guys are silly. If I'm not drinking, you don't make sense. It's not fun to be with you. You guys are idiots. So that was tough. I was alone. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. So how did you give up meat or the alcohol? What made you give up alcohol or meat?
No, I mean, I'm telling you, my friend. See, meat was different. One time, my sister came to visit me, and she made a veggie. We were having tacos, and she made veggie tacos. And I thought, oh my God, that's so good. I'm so full, and it was so good. But I feel so good that I just didn't eat a cow. I feel so good I didn't just eat a big bunch of cow. So that was it. It was just that day. I never ate again. So I was like, there's no need to. So, but the alcohol was, that was just more like, when I was in university, I was trying to learn how to live. And I was recognizing how different things made me feel. And food, when I ate food, I always got tired after. So I lived mostly on fruits. And that I learned. And then what I learned was, Monday is Monday. It's tough because it's after the weekend. And then we used to go out late night on Friday. So Saturday was a waste. And Sunday was a depression because Monday you have to go back to work. And so every cycle was like this. And by Thursday, I'm feeling great. But then Friday you go out late, and Saturday you feel like trash again. And I just thought, what if I didn't do that? Because I was intensely studying life, like how to live and what is best. And I just thought, what if you didn't do that? What if you didn't go 2 steps forward, 1 step back? What if you just went 2 steps forward, 2 steps forward? What would happen? And so I assumed that university would have the solution, because I didn't know anything about religion. And I didn't, like I said, I knew Jesus, Buddha, and Muhammad, and I frankly wasn't really interested in it. And that was it. I just, when I decided that after university, I applied for all these jobs, I walked in and out of 2 great interviews, and I was like, why don't you care about getting the job? And I need to know what life is. And so I decided, when I decided that, alcohol not just went away, because it was like, I was serious by that time. I was extremely serious. I was, I spent 6 years studying, looking for the answer of life everywhere I could, and no one had it. So I took it to the next level after that. So next level from that was extremely intense. But anyway, so how I like one thing. So I've been initiated many times by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, and one thing Swamiji, he says is, when you're ready for the master comes into your life. And the thing I can say is when I look back from the first time when I remember when I decided that, no, I'm not going to take a job. I'm going to get an evening job and I'm going to spend my life looking for the purpose of life. When I made that decision, the next thing I did, I went to the library and I got videos because I didn't like to read. So I just got videos and I ended up getting this one Kumela video. I didn't know it was Kumela or anything, but I ended up watching it and it became one of my favorite videos. And I didn't know this, but actually Swamiji's in that video. And and I didn't realize it till a year later that the first thing I did when I decided I upped my intensity of I really want the truth of life. The first thing that happened was Swamiji was shown. So anyway, that happened, but not a year later, I was searching and I said I was searching with Srila Prabhupada and I was seeing Kumela. So I clicked on Kumela. I was like, okay, well, what is this? And on the side, there was a Swamiji video. And so I clicked on it. And what it was it was at Kumela, but basically there was a vehicle, a white truck, like you'll know in India, those small trucks. And Swamiji was getting out of it. So he looked like a young boy, right? He looked like 25 or something.
Yeah, pretty young. Yeah, pretty young boy. Yeah, young guy. Yeah.
And so he's getting out. And like I said, I didn't know very much about anything spiritual at that point, really. And I just heard something about Krishna and I was like, whoa, someone knows more about me than I could never know. And apparently it's a whole civilization. And apparently there's lots of masters. And apparently they handed it down from forever. There's this huge thing that is there that knows more about me. And that's probably an important thing. And so anyway, so I click on this video. And here is this young, thin, bright-faced boy. I can just see his face is like glowing. He's sitting in the vehicles. He's sitting facing front and the door is open. And literally you can just see his light. Like at this point, I didn't know anything spiritual experience, but you could just see light is there. He gets out and he's cheering. He's leading this chant. I think if I could remember, he's probably saying like Hara Hara and everyone's going Mahadev, right? Like I think that's what's happening, but that was new to me. So I'm like, who is this? Someone is, what? I don't know I thought it was a serial TV show. I thought it was some TV show about, I don't know what it was.
Reality show, like some type of reality show?
No, not reality. I thought like a
real show?
Yeah, like a sitcom, like some kind of
sitcom. Okay, sitcom.
It's some drama show. Because he was getting out and cheering this thing, and I was like, that's acting. It's the joy. I was like, whoa, he's kind of overacting, And I didn't know.
He's overacting. Okay, interesting. Continue.
So I didn't know anything, but anyway, I'm just saying that's the first time I saw Swamiji. He was getting out of this vehicle, leading this thing, and I was like, I just remember like, this must be acting because he's acting really joyful. It's like some weird Indian TV show, and whoever is there he's acting, he's doing, I don't know what, but that's all. So then I'm like, okay, that was what. So I don't know what that video was about. There was something, but next to it was a discourse, Swamiji discourse. So I watched that, and then that was it. Then in those days, that was like 2008. There was about like 630 videos on Swamiji's channel, and so over the next number of months, I ended up watching probably like 2,000. I estimate I watched every video 4 times, so I probably watched about. That's all I did. Sometimes weekends I spend 52 hours just listening to that.
Wow.
And so that was it. One of the first main things that like I said, I'm saying I already had studied 6 years in university looking for truth. And I had already studied more than 100 spiritual teachers and gurus for a year. And so I was like, I kind of knew what was out there. You know, I was familiar. And like I said, I studied even Srila Prabhupada and I read Dhammapada. Like, so I knew what was out there. But Swamiji was, first of all, with Swamiji, none of the gurus are ever that happy. They're all constipated. Almost everyone's constipated. Like, seriously, if you see any teacher, it is, I sit like a stone and I'm the immovable one, right? Or like,
Yeah.
or I talk really quiet to prove that I'm in bliss, I'm in peace. Like, no one is like, throws caution to the wind and is like intense. Like, but that was one definite thing you see about Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is that intense. And so that was one thing, is you never see anyone so throwing caution to the wind and it comes out as happy, blissful, bubbling energy. That is just categorically, transformically, you never see that. So that was one thing. I was like, who is this that is so
young guy? Who is this young guy? He always seems to be happy.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah,
this is different. I knew, like, I worked in 30 different schools in about 5 countries and with 100 different teachers, all ages from age 2 to 35 and above. And so, yeah, so I'd seen pretty much what there is. And so I was like, one of the things is categorically, he's different from that bliss. It's just like, because a lot of the gurus, they sit like, whether it's, they're just stone face and somehow that is like a proof of spiritual achievement or something. But so totally different on that thing. The other part was how he put things in modern language. The spirituality was like, he could tell this exactly, how you were living and the things about non-veg, and he could tell like, the discotheque or the dancing and the nightlife. Like, he could put things in a modern language in a way that, it wasn't like sort of like allegorical, like Dhammapada or something. It was like, it was that too, but it was like he spoke in a way that was just like cutting. And the spiritual strength that he radiated. So there was these multiple things that was just like, so very early on, I recognized, actually, I mean, from the first moment I saw Swamiji, right? Because I thought it wasn't real. I was like, that's not real, it's acting. So
so you thought he's not real, he's acting. Yeah.
So it actually, if I look from the very first time I saw Swamiji, I knew that he was something different. And so that was it. So what I did was, because luckily there was a lot of content of his. So yeah, I basically exhausted all the content I could. I exhausted the Srila Prabhupada videos and so much whatever I could. So what I would do is, because then I thought, okay, well, I'll just move on to Swamiji. I'll just, go to the extent of that. But Swamiji would say stuff in the satsangs like, you can fly. I remember he said, your body can fly. And I was like, I don't think I understand. Like, I don't understand this.
Well, is he smoking pot? Did you ever think is he smoking pot? He says
No.
people can fly.
No, I never thought that. I just thought like, okay, maybe I thought I don't quite get it. So my strategy, what I did was, I just watched every video again and again until either I could see, okay, yeah, what he says doesn't make sense, or, oh yes, I can see what he's saying. And I did that. So like I said, there was about 630 videos on YouTube at that time. So I watched everyone on average probably like 4 times, and some of them are an hour and a half long. And so I did that. And if I didn't get something, I just watched it again, because I'm like, well, let me find out. It's either not true or, oh, okay, I see what he's saying. And there was never, this was just unique. There was never totally unique. It was never a single time ever that I was ever coming out on the side of like, oh no, that doesn't make sense. I always, after seeing it, I was able, and that never happened to me. It's like the George Bush Jr. was the president at that time. And so he's on video a lot, on TV a lot. And the amount of stupid, idiotic, non-integrated stuff that he says is, compounds day by day, right? So people who are on video all the time, they say a lot of nonsensical, completely non-integrated, ridiculous things. But Swamiji had thousands of hours, and he was talking freely and sometimes like, sternly. So yeah, I just kept watching, and I was just like, no, okay, if I watch again and again, okay, I see what he's saying. So that was totally unique. So one of the first so that was the thing. When I first saw him, I'm like, oh, something's different. He's wow. And then the strength and the power and the logic and the clarity, I was just like, wow, I'm like, I got to figure this out. And one of the things Swamiji said was, early on when I was seeing that, he said, just for 3 months, consume only spiritual content. So your magazines, your news, your videos, your whatever, only spiritual content. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. I mean, I was wanting to do that. So I did it. And at that time I had a job with a place. I was like a youth advisor, basically. So you help them find housing and counseling and education and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I was doing. And this was when one of the first things when I don't know. One of the first things that happened that I was like, I don't really know what's happening. But so I was listening again to Swamiji because there's so much content, and I had exhausted many other things. So mostly it was Swamiji. And because it was so fascinating, and I just couldn't grasp it, but never it was wrong. I'd play it again, never was wrong. And I'm a logical guy. I got honors grades in 8 years of post-secondary education in computers and philosophy, psychology, and all these things. And I was a philosophy guy, like, anyway. And anyway, so I was consuming only spiritual content. And then I had this job, right, doing this youth advising, right? And so anyway, there's one day specifically, we had a very impromptu staff meeting. There was mainly like 4 of us staff in this small office, and we had a short meeting. And I was mostly in the mode of listening in those days, because I realized there was power in listening. I wasn't in the mode of telling people about stuff, telling them what to do. And we had this thing, and this person, I don't even know, it was extremely casual, but this person said something or asked something about like their perspective of something. And I opened my mouth and I spoke for about 2 minutes. And what came out was, I mean, it must have been, it was probably verbatim some part of Swamiji's satsang. So I had not practiced, and I did not practice to say, but I just started realizing, and you know what the funny thing was? I started saying whatever I was saying. I wasn't planning nothing. I started speaking, and after about a minute, I realized, hey, these words are Swamiji's words. And so I started listening to myself, and then I was just talking one of his satsangs. And that was a big shift. I was just like, I don't have any idea I don't know what's going on. So anyway, that was a big experience. And so that was it. So one of his teachers came to Saskatchewan in Canada. So I took a 2-day trip to go there for a meditation program. I had never done any meditation before, never done any program. I didn't want to get fooled by anything. But I'd been studying for 1.5 years by myself, and I needed to find something else. I needed a solution. It was getting tough. And so I went there. It was a 2-day life bliss meditation program. And we did third eye meditation, which was kind of neat. I had a great experience. I just thought I'll go there. And if I don't, yeah. And
go ahead.
if I don't, if I don't like it, I'll just quit. And because I didn't want to get fooled by anything. Like previous to this in my studies, I had gone to many churches. I had studied actually in university. The Islamic student council there was very active. So I had a lot of interactions with them. And I studied Judaism when I was doing my studies. And I took a Buddhist class in university, and I did a lot of meditation that way. And I went to a lot of churches. So I did a lot of, I was looking, see, after university, I realized the university doesn't have an answer. I thought, well, what else can I look? I'm like, well, humans have this big idea called religion. So I'm like, okay, let me check. So I went to the Roman Catholic Church. I went to, I think, United Church, where they were singing and dancing with guitars and stuff. And anyway, so I studied the Judaism, and I had a lot of experience with the Muslim Student Council and whatnot. And anyway, but I didn't want to commit. I thought, let me find out. I thought in all my studies, something will happen. But after a year, I thought I'd become a Buddhist. I was pretty sure I'd become a Buddhist. But after a year of studying with Bhagavad Gita and whatnot, nothing had happened. So I finally decided I'll go to this meditation program. One of Swamiji's acharyas was teaching because it was amazing. And so I thought, okay, let me check out. And so I went there and we did this meditation, Manipuraka Shuddhi Kriya, where basically what you do is close your eyes, you look inside, you go into your pain, you find your pain, whatever, you go into that. And then they play, it was funny, they did the description. They said, what we're going to do is you're going to close your eyes, look into your pain. Everyone get on your yoga mat, look into your pain. We're going to play some loud music and you yell and scream all that pain out for 20 minutes. I thought he was joking. I laughed. I thought he was joking. And so we did it and I started doing it. I'm like, okay, fine. Because I was like, hey, I don't got nothing to lose. I'm just living. Like, if I don't like it, I'll leave. And so I started doing it and it was working and it got stronger. And I started yelling. And then I got back to this experience of like being a 2-year-old kid and eventually being in my mother's womb, actually, and yelling and screaming all this stuff out and crying and like I never experienced before. And one of the things and after that was like, that was a breakthrough. What I had saw was that inside of my chest, my body was basically this stone. And what had happened during that process is the stone had cracked up and crumbled and gone away. And now there was a space. But there was still a stump, but there was a space. And now I had a space to work with. And so I had to learn what to do with that space. That was a huge breakthrough. That was, I think, a spiritual experience. And that was one of the big things. And so 2 months later, Swamiji came to Vancouver in Canada. And so I'm like, okay, let me go and find out what this is about. And same thing. I was like, I'll just go. If I don't like it, I'll leave. Like, that's all. So I went there. It was 7 days. The first 3 nights was 2-hour discourse. And like I said, I didn't know anything spiritual experience, nothing. And I realized now I didn't know anything about gurus. I mean, I still don't know too much about gurus. It's such a big thing. But I didn't know what a real master, like what was Buddha? You know, I didn't like, or what is Krishna or Rama? Like, what is the spiritual power? We don't know anything. Like Shankaracharya, we don't know anything. What is it? You cannot, it's a nuclear bomb. You cannot. So I went and whatever, I don't know. So I was sitting, there's a room, maybe 400 people sitting. And at that time I was extremely, mental thoughts running, like you cannot stop, right? So I don't know, Swamiji speaking. And then naturally he's saying, and I'm questioning in my head. And so inside of my head, I shout out this thing about what he's saying. Like, well, what about this? Right? Like strongly, like I'm shouting out, Swamiji turns, looks at me, points at me, and says the answer. And I was like,
wow, how come he just, I'm just thinking about it. And then how come just, answers my question? Is that your surprise was?
Yeah, no, it was, because I was staying in a hotel, right? And so I went to the hotel after and I was just like, did that really happen? And, but no, there's 400 people in a room and I was kind of calm. And then Swamiji said something and I shouted out a question. He turned and looked at me and stopped, pointed at me and said the answer. And I was just like, okay, whatever. And so there was 7 days going on. And so basically I ended up having about 12 of those experiences that were totally inexplicable. And like I said, I was an ice hockey player, so I didn't have any idea what a spiritual experience was or anything. And one of the main experiences I had, there was a few, but we did a healer initiation where Swamiji was guiding and you go towards him and you look and I'm like, okay, I'm going wherever I'm going. And then I experienced this something. I was trying to go inside or whatever, go towards Swamiji, and I was there and I'm like, okay. And then I started experiencing this spaciousness. And it's kind of like spaciousness. I'm like, okay, that's nice. And then I'm like, okay, good. So then I'm like, wait a second, there's like something inside that is like, because Swamiji said, look in an Andaganda, which is sort of like the center of your body, sort of. So I'm looking in there, I'm going in there, and
Anandaganda. You're going into the Anandaganda.
Yeah, this was healer initiation. And like I said, I didn't meditate a lot. I didn't really know what we were supposed to do. But I I was doing that. And so I was going inside and I was like, okay, I think if things started to feel a little bit fluid, I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, started to feel nice. It's like that part that's out there is part of me. And like, okay, then I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, wow, that thing is nice. It's kind of pulsating. Like I had gone to a Buddhist yoga Lama Ole Nadal once, and we did a meditation on Buddha. It became very intense. So it was similar to that. And I was like, okay, there's this thing going on. And then I'm like, okay, but it's kind of like it's all part of me, and that thing inside of me is sort of the source. It's like a pulsating. I'm looking, I'm like, wow, it's really nice. I'm like, it's very accepting. And it came to me like, oh, I'm experiencing this oneness. I'm like, oh, I think that's love. I think this is love. I think I'm experiencing love. And I'm like, that's nice. It feels like, wow, that's nice. And then I'm looking, I'm like, wow, that's great. So I'm looking at this love. I'm like, hey, that's cool. Love is good. And it doesn't feel like, no, it's not sharp like lust or happiness. It's like kind of like it's there. I'm like, that's cool. Love is cool. I'm looking at it. I'm like, wait a second. What am I looking at? And I'm like, wait a second. That's me. And I started crying. I started
crying like a baby.
Not like a baby, weeping,
Wow.
just joy. It was just like, that was me, and that's me, and that's love, and it was just, anyway. So that was a super intense. Didn't cry a lot in my life, but so that was another experience where I was just like,
man crying, was it there in your culture?
No, man swearing and drinking was there in my culture. Like,
Man crying wasn't there.
Construction workers, right? They swear intensely when they work. So
yeah.
So yeah, so that was, I remember that was, I still can't explain that, but it was like, it ended up being like, that was that experience. And then there was one other thing that happened. We were sitting, Swamiji said, sit in Padmasana. So I sat, which was always tough for me. And I could never sit straight when I did. And he said, visualize
So Swamiji was sitting in Padmasana, and then you couldn't sit. And then, go ahead, continue.
No, Swamiji was sitting on the stage, right? And he's like telling the instructions. And he said, sit in Padmasana. And so I tried. It was very uncomfortable, but I did. Then he said, visualize your like, I didn't know anything about spirituality or nothing, right? So I'm just like, okay, fine. So then he's like, visualize your spine as a shaft of light. So I'm like, okay. And then what happened was this lightning bolt was shooting out of my head and coming, I can't explain it, but, and coming out of this, down from the ceiling, going through my head and through my spine. And I just sat up like this and just crying, but really nice feeling for about 15 minutes, right? And so again, I go back to the hotel after that. I'm just like, I don't have any idea what's going on, but I'm just going to go back tomorrow and we'll see what happens next. I don't even know. So yeah, all these experiences I couldn't explain, right? So there's about 12 things like that were totally inexplicable.
Inexplicable, but you are experiencing. You can't explain, but you can experience.
Yeah, like one time, one of the meditations, Swamiji said, visualize you're in front of a wall. That was the meditation. And I tried and I couldn't get it. And then I just got it. I'm like, yeah, I got it. And then as soon as I got it, Swamiji goes, relax. Everyone open your eyes. I'm like,
it's over, man. It's over.
And it happened again. There was one time I was so hot, I was going to take off. I had 2 shirts on. I was going to take off one of them. I was like, I can't stand it anymore. I can't stand. I'm going to do it. And I was just about to tear it off, just about to do it. And then Swamiji goes, relax, open your eyes. And so I was like, how does he know everything, So anyway, these things happened that didn't make any sense. We went through all of it. It was great. And then I went back to my hometown and I was just like, what happened? Like, what happened? And I didn't know what happened. And so what I ended up doing was I went for this long walk at nighttime, and I just walking around the city at night. And I was looking at the stars and I was like, what is this? Like, what is this place? Like, what did I experience in Vancouver? This doesn't make any sense, And so yeah, that was pretty much it. I tried to go to Inner Awakening a few months later, but I didn't quite make it. And a few months after that, Swamiji there was another teacher coming to Edmonton, and he taught a class, and I went there and had another huge experience. I was like, whoa, I haven't done any of the meditations practices since the few months ago when Swamiji was here, but that experience is still there. I'm like, wow, like that Anandaganda love experience came up again and intensely. And I was just like, wow, it's still there. And then I was like, wow, there's this undying flower inside of me that I'm not paying attention to that's still there and powerful. What if I paid attention to it? What could happen? And so that was it. So Swamiji came back about a month later, and he gave a Kalpataru. And I know at that time, he always says, whenever Swamiji says, I'll take care, if he says blessing something, I'll take care, that means it's already done. And so I went up for my Kalpataru, and one of the people in front of me, they were getting a mala blessed to wear. They gave it to Swamiji, and as soon as he touched it, it just exploded. And I was like, okay. And this blew into pieces, and I was like, okay. So then I went up to Swamiji, and he said, is there anything you want to tell me? And I said, I would like to come to LBE, which is a 3-month study program. I would like to come to LBE and study with you. And he said, oh no, I didn't say that. I said, I'd like to study with you. And he said, come to LBE, I'll take care. And I tell you what happened. I'll tell you what happened. Tears jumped out of my, like I fell into his shoulder. Like I never touch him. I'm not like, I want to hug him. I feel, I don't want to put, there's a enlightened guru that, I'm not invading, but I tell you what happened. I fell into him, and I'll tell you what happened. The tears jumped out of my eyes, and they hit his kavi before my body did.
Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah. Then some people have to lift you up off of the body of Swamiji.
No, but I think I can remember a big, like it looked like he took a shower, I think, was on his side. Yeah.
So how long were you on the shoulder of the Swamiji?
I don't know, but I don't, not very long, but but as soon as I realized, I'm like, okay, let me stop. And then, so anyway, that was great. So that was it. I ended up being able to go to India for the Inner Awakening, which was super awesome. And yeah, that was awesome. And too many experiences, too many. And but one of the main ones was, it was 21 days was the main intense Inner Awakening experience. And on the 19th day, I was walking around the Adi Kailasa campus, which was, the best place on earth, a different planet. And I was having the best time of my life. And I just realized all of a sudden I was really, really worried. I was like, what are you worried about? I was worried when I had to go back to Canada, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. But you enjoy now. You think about that later.
Yeah, yeah. And that's you were there. Bhagavan, you were there. And there was, I think, 500 of us in the Inner Awakening. And so I was really worried. I couldn't break it. That whole day, I'm like, until then I was fine. And that whole day I was really worried. Like, what are you so worried about? Well, when I go back, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm like, why? What do you mean? Well, there's nothing to do. There's nothing left to do. It's like, what do you mean there's nothing left to do? There's nothing left I need to do in life. It's done. I was like, oh. So that was a big, I was like, because I never felt like that before. So that was a big shift. And that's it. I went back after that 3 months, and those, the sort of religious persecution attacks exploded just a couple of weeks after that, with the release of the faked video and all these things. So that was another part of the galvanizing and process. And yeah, so that's a big chunk of how that part happened anyway, for me, up to that point. Yeah.
So then how did you become, how did you end up becoming, and looks like a Hindu? You are more Hindu than me. How did that happen?
That's what, like a Hindu is one who is you know, the Meru Tantra says, "Oh my dear, one who renounced all ignorance and inferiority is a Hindu." So at our source, we're all Hindus. But I just like, that's what I went back to that thing, and I stayed at my parents' house for a couple months because I was like, I don't have to do anything. And they're like, "Hey, you can't stay here forever. Get out." Right?
That's American way, right? That's an American way, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So I got a job. I think I was cleaning nights at IKEA. So I wanted to keep my day for my spiritual life. And so I would listen to Swamiji all the time I was working. And I mean, all the time anyway. I was just like, my thing was, okay, can I just go back to normal life now? Macy, I think I'm fixed. So let me go back. And I was just like, no, I need to know more. So I went back basically for 6 months was the maximum we could do at a time. Then you had to leave the country for 2 months. So I went back volunteering like 6 months, I think. And it just kept getting more. And then I'm like, okay, I'd like to try to commit my life to that thing. So I went back again and did more volunteering. And I ended up, then I spent 1 year in Toronto Temple volunteering, which was great. Then I needed a year to complete my student loan debts so I could take up the spiritual life full time. And then I went back to Adi Kailash for about 4.5 years. And Swamiji gave the Brahmacharya initiation. And, 10,000 years of experience and completion there, breaking the anger pattern and learning to be active and too much. And too much things. And then I 2019 came back to Canada for some time and needed to complete whatever I had learned in that previous 6 years, needed to align and complete what I had not learned, where I was not aligning. So I spent a lot of time in the last year and a half doing a lot of completion. And I've learned a lot about, I think, humanity and what is a guru. I never realized how much we don't know what is guru and how you're supposed to be with a guru. That I feel is maybe, that's maybe one of the greatest things humanity is missing. There's a complete, almost 0%. And the thing is, because the enlightenment is the guru, like it's the solution, not the problem of society. If you don't have that, it's a miss. So, but yeah, so that was, so they've been for that. And, yeah, so now I'm just, now I have a much better context for enriching and the need to take care of people and how they are and how humans are stuck in patterns and how you have to have patience with them and how you have to not give up, how you have to try to be a leader that doesn't give up and doesn't quit and doesn't get down on people. And because I always felt like I was looking for other people to validate, but I feel that Swamiji models not like that. He gathers like millions of people and holds them. And if you look, he carries them for 25 years and never asks anything of any of them and never gives up on any of them. And it takes time. It takes time. So that is sort of the modeling. So yeah, that's it. I have more recently chosen Hinduism, chosen to be a Hindu, because being a Hindu comes with a lot of responsibility, but I didn't choose Hinduism. It just happened. Like it was like Christianity, they have rules like do this, don't do that, but no one lives it. And like, the pastors are not enlightened. They're not, and and they don't tell you how to eat. They don't tell you how to sleep. They don't tell you how to exercise. So I'm an athlete my whole life. If you don't tell me how to eat, sleep, and exercise, then I don't know what you're just telling me a story. Like, I don't need stories. I have all the philosophy I need. So that was one thing. Some of the Buddhist texts talk about bile, and that stuck in my head. I read a text in university about bile, and I thought, why are they talking about bile? But it's extremely important. So that was all. I just really wanted to, once I got my big job after college, and I realized it wasn't what I wanted, it was a demotion. I just want to know what the truth is. I just want to not lie to myself. That's all. I didn't choose Hinduism.
You didn't choose Hinduism, it just happened.
Swamiji models life, and it happens to come in the form of Hinduism. And it's see, there is a way to live in accordance with life, and that's not the North American or the Europe. It's just, I'm not saying anything against anyone. I'm just saying, if anyone wants to talk to authority, what authority we have? We have my authority, we have the other people I know, we have the books, and we have the history. That's the only authorities anyone ever appeals to. So where's the books? Who has the books? Any religion have a certain number of books, but Hinduism has maybe 100 million books. And then, okay, well, what about the living masters? Any tradition has maybe one founder or two or three or some number of disciples, but Hinduism, plethora. Bogar, Patanjali, Yogananda, like left, right, and center, right? And they're all saying, all those masters we're all talking about, and all the books we're talking about, all the same. They're all pointing the same thing. So if you take all the enlightened gurus and all the books and the oldest living civilization, all those enlightened gurus, Buddha and all of them, they're all saying the same thing. So that is a huge authority. So I'm not saying, I'm not saying that, but at a certain point, life is bigger than me. Like who am I to speak against Krishna? Like, I'm not saying, I'm just like, so I'm not saying anything, just they are saying, Rama is telling me, Krishna is telling me, Buddha is telling me, Swamiji is there giving me an experience, Yogananda is saying, Srila Prabhupada is saying, his gurus, Yukteswar, everyone is saying, they are saying this. I'm not saying, right? And they're saying, oh, this is all the books, and that's the tradition, that's 100,000 years. They are saying. So who am I? So that's all. I just said, and so. But the one click that came out from that I understood also with Swamiji is because I studied education so much. So I had many ideas of different things. Problem is, when you only have those different things, I had for nutritionists, I had one teacher. For relationships, there's another person. For spirituality, another. The problem with that is when they come into conflict, you have to choose who to follow. When my diet is conflicting with my relationship, I have to choose this person or this. That's the problem. Then when I choose the nutritionist and follow them, they don't have a solution for my relationships. That's the problem. That's the problem with life. So then Swamiji is speaking and telling me about education and philosophy and exercise. And I was just like, whoa, this civilization is so beautiful, it has solutions for everything. I was like, I didn't choose but then the opportunity to enrich and take responsibility to make, because one thing is when you have a human body, see, we have an opportunity to make a difference, to lessen the suffering of the other beings. That is the thing. I could just not do anything because I was feeling fulfilled, but I have an opportunity by taking action to lessen the suffering of the other beings. So that is sort of I can do nothing. That's fine because Swamiji is taking care of me and he'll always take care of me. And when he leaves the body, he'll do what needs to be done. But from now until then, I have an opportunity to live that. And the truth is, if I take action and I make a difference, it lessens the suffering of those, even one message. People will give you hearts on your response, that, right? Just one little, you can make a difference. You can. So that is something I sort of felt I can lessen the suffering. And that's what, right? That's the grand narrative of Hinduism, that again and again, every yuga, the pure consciousness lands in the form of the incarnation to dispel the delusion of the humanity. That's what life is. The humans screw things up and the enlightened beings come and fix it. That's,
right? Yeah. And the human beings screw up and then enlightened beings come and fix it, right?
Yeah. That's the purpose of planet Earth, is for the deluded souls who don't believe they're souls to get into the five senses and experience all the senses intensely and realize it's not fulfilling and turn back to their source. That's like, the humanity is literally like, I don't want to say, but the humanity is literally a bunch of criminals. Like it's
But what is the humanity is bunch of criminals.
no, sorry, but I'm saying by design. Like that's why the humanity exists, for all the deluded souls, the criminal souls, who are not agreeing that you're a soul or you're a consciousness. For all the deluded
Your God, your Atma, and you could be Paramatma. Yeah.
Yeah, it's for all the rebellious, criminal, individual, deluded souls to take birth in human form and realize that lusting, fear, anger is not going to be fulfilling, because they're too stubborn to believe it when they don't have a human body. So give them a human body, give them the intense suffering that you get when you eat all that food and indulge in all the things that's why humanity exists. That's why humanity exists.
So who decides to give the intense suffering? Who is deciding?
You
to
do.
Give...
You do. You do. You
okay,
do.
Yeah.
See, otherwise you stay where you are. Like only the deluded souls take a human, like aside from the conscious births of incarnations, only deluded souls take a human birth because they don't believe they're enlightened. So naturally, all the beings who deny their enlightenment are coming here. So ergo, the world is full of animosity and anger, right? So when you realize that, everything makes sense. The humanity makes sense. It makes sense now. It makes sense why there's so many problems. People are so deluded, so much anger, so much animosity, because that's who comes here. The beings with intense delusion and rejection of their own nature, they're the only ones who come here. The other ones stay there blissfully.
Okay, so the people who are like, who can't tolerate that anymore, right? The people who can't tolerate that anymore, then they just show up here. Yeah, the people who can't, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like Shiva is sitting in Kailas, right? He sits there and he's happy, right? You have to move him. Shiva, please come. He's like sits in meditation for trillions of years. You have to be like, hey, please, like he's fine. He's fine where he is, right? It's all the beings who are like, nah, this is not good enough for me. I want this, I want that, I want power. It's all those. It's all the rebels. It's all the problem makers. Only problem makers come in human form, right? Except for the enlightened beings. I mean, by definition, that's what's happening here. That's what humanity is. I mean, that's just how it is. Either you come as an enlightened being or you come as a deluded criminal. That there's no other.
That's very good, man. You need to tell the whole world. You need to go scream, go to, you should go to the college, right? You should go to each college and then school and say, hey, we are all deluded criminals, and here is a guy who is going to save us.
See, Srila Prabhupada used to call them rascals. So it's true. All the rascals running. See, that's all. If you're not devoted, see, the other thing, one of the definitions of the Hindu is the one who's committed to living in the Shastras, is in the scriptures, is the one who's committed to living the conscious life of Dharma and the cow worship, and willing to go through any violence and pain against him to do that, is a Hindu. That is defined in our scripture. So if you're doing that, then you're Hindu. But if you're not doing that, then you're life negative. So that's just like you can say dharmically, or life as per consciousness. If you're living as per consciousness, then you're fulfilling that thing. But most of humanity is not committed to that. They're committed to the indulgences of the senses. So that's criminal and life negative behavior. I mean, it's not a condemnation of people. It's just when you see the fact clear, then life makes sense. People are so confused. They don't know why bad things happen to good people. Why this, why that. But when you see, no, we're deluded beings and came here. That's why we came here. That's why you're creating problem, because you are problem. Then everything makes so much sense. Then you can have more patience. Then you don't condemn people because they have problems, condemn them because they have anger. You understand you're the same, you came with the same intentions. So you understand that this 70 years is the time to prepare for your next progress. When this body dies, your life energy goes somewhere else. This is your only chance to make sure it goes in a better place. So that's a big thing when you can understand what is the humanity. Like Swamiji says, like understanding the like I'm just paraphrasing, like the Atma and the Ishvara and the Jagat. If you can understand the individual and the physical nature and the whole, that thing is so crucial. Then your life makes sense. Oh, the whole is there. I'm deluded as an individual, engaging with the physical thing and feeling that's reality. So, but anyway, so that was just one of the things that seeing clearly who is the humanity, who are they, and how they're intensely stuck in patterns, intent and deluded pattern and anger pattern, so much anger pattern, they themselves don't want to come out, rather be suicidal. I'll destroy myself than you take me out of my pattern. So we can see how so much violence again and again happens to the enlightened beings when you disturb, when that raising of the consciousness disturbs the patterns that is in the intestine of the people. The rebellion happens. Ask someone just to go for 18 hours without a coffee. Seriously, any regular person, many times it's not possible to imagine life without coffee. And not a joke, a serious thing. They all know clearly. I'll not go a day without coffee. So you take away the coffee, like Swamiji said once, we were in the Adinam and someone was asking about tea and coffee. Oh, Swamiji, we shouldn't have coffee in Adinam. He said, I tried once. So much violence happens.
Yeah, you take away the coffee from somebody, they leave the ashram, man.
Yeah, but not only that, he said, I tried. So much violence. So much violence. So, but no, it's just to say that, see, Swamiji comes as the, I mean, I can't say that I know who Swamiji is, but one of the things we see is the example, the living example of the patience, and so I can never say enough. I'm trying to be more of a tyagi and drop my ignorance and try to be more active, try to be available to people. But yeah, it's one of the great things I learned was one of the times I was coming back from India to Toronto, the temple there, and I was walking. I hadn't been in the society. I had spent most of 4.5 years in the forest in India. I didn't realize. So I came back to the society, Toronto, like 5 million people, right? And I was just like, oh my God, like I never, wow, like, I quit watching TV like 2004. So I quit when all the Big Brother 10 and Big Brother 25 and, and I knew things were getting bad in 2001 with society. But wow, in the last 20 years, it just, so I came back from the forest and I was walking in Toronto one day. I was coming from the airport to the temple. And I was walking and I was just like, what is my purpose here? All these people running around, so much, problems. What's my purpose? And I just realized like, oh, I know my purpose clearly is to enrich the humanity with the truth of life. And it just felt really nice that, I realized, oh, wow, you know what? That's why I came to planet Earth. I never really said that before or believed it or understood it or wanted to say it. But at that one moment, I realized, oh, this number of 40 years, even though I didn't know, actually, this is why I came to planet Earth. And so it feels nice, it's like, wow, like this is completely and totally my purpose. Even though there's still patterns of the intestine and stuff needs to be burnt out, especially as an athlete, it's intensely fueled on anger. Like my whole value was because I was willing to be an intensely, ultimately violent athlete, especially in ice hockey. my whole value in society and myself was that, I was respected as an athlete, and in that realm, that people not idolize, but that was my identity. I was funny, I'll joker also, but I was an athlete, and that was where I lived. We played many sports, and a lot of my value was because I was willing to be violent through a sport. And so I still need to cleanse that bio memory from myself. But yeah, so that's it. We've learned a lot. We've been having some men's group discussions, especially young men, over the past year, and just learning challenges facing men, and their difficulty in communicating, their reluctance to listen. They're getting stuck in logic and not listening from the heart, and fear to express themselves, and fear of being judged because they're so logical. Whereas a lot of time the feminine energy is more emotional. And so a lot of times the male bodies have resistance to just expressing emotionally because of fear of being judged and be able to explain it. So I've been learning a lot. So I don't know, it's been, learning about the Hindu persecution was one of the biggest breakthroughs of my life. And so this is, yeah, for sure. So yeah, anyway, I don't know what else to say. It's, yoga is great. See, Hinduism is great because they're all yogis. And your body, that's what integrity is. Your body, you can't just say something. Your bone marrow also has to radiate it. And that's when we see a lot of it's like, if you don't resolve the lusting energy when you get older, you're stuck in this body that can't enact the lust, and that those mental patterns drive you insane and destroy you. So we see a lot of this acting out as violence against women and otherwise. And so that's one of the attacks they put on Hindus because, they want to. But the thing is, all the Hindu gurus, they're all yogis. So they're intensely non-violent to the core. So it's not just a word. That's the great thing about Sanatana Hindu Dharma, is that it's your experience, because it addresses you from the bio memory, and from the blood, the level of the blood, the DNA, purifying your body. So you don't just talk about nonviolence, you experience it, and you don't have to think about it and try to do it, because you remove all the violent patterns from your body. So as someone who was always close to his body and playing a lot of sports and stuff, that has been a big liberation. It's been a huge, big challenge, actually. But the biggest liberation, aside from, frankly, just straight out, obviously, meeting Swamiji, has been dropping the food and moving to a liquid diet. I've gone through extreme ups and downs, and I still do every day. But it's been such a liberating thing. It's been extremely liberating to learn to live on only light liquids. There's so much anger in my biomemory that I never knew. I never really understood the extent that, all the frankly, the alcohol and that partying lifestyle, and how much anger is in there, and combine it with the intense physicality of the sports and the violence in the sports and all that, and those related things, how much that actually hurts your system. There's a lack of understanding in the Western world also, that it matters how you treat your body, not just saying that, but it actually matters. And so, I'm still learning those things, but yeah, it's been, there's two things in my life I knew I would never do: work with kids, because I never really liked kids that much, and I became a teacher. But the one thing for sure I knew I would never, ever, ever be, was a religious guy, because I just didn't. I went to church.
And the Hindu religious guy, right? You never imagined that you'd be religious. Forget about being a Hindu religious guy, right?
Yeah, no, I never even explored Hinduism. I explored all the other, because it's portrayed as superstition crazy people. I never took it seriously. I just took it as like tribal ridiculousness, you know. But I know I never ever even looked into it because I just never. Yeah, but there's somehow, some way, this word Gita was ringing, and I searched on. So I don't know. I know that when I was a kid, I have a memory when I was about 12. I saw this movie, this show about Buddhist monks, and they said that the monk reads this passage that they read part of a book, some scripture every day, and they can read one line at a time. They can't go on until they understand that line. And so they said sometimes they read one line only a day, or one line only takes 2 days. And I thought, hey, maybe I could be a monk because I'm not good at reading also. And so I think, I feel like what happened is, you know, in that sense, Buddha did help me a lot, and obviously led me to Srila Prabhupada and Gita, and he led me to Krishna, which led me to Sanatana Hindu Dharma, which brought into Swamiji, the supreme point of Hinduism. So, I mean, anyway, but yeah, it's you know, as a teacher, seeing Gurukul, like I said, I've worked in more than 30 schools, and so I've seen how schools operate, and I didn't quite understand how Swamiji's mission was going to happen. He said so many big things will happen, but until I saw Gurukul, and when I saw those kids, his like Balasants, I've never seen, you know, if you see kids, a lot of them are quiet, some of them are gregarious, get into trouble and all that, and some of them may be good in 1 or 2 areas. Some may be good at sports, but not other things. But there's always a part where they're not good at, maybe not good at socializing, maybe not good at reading. There's always a part where they get into low energy. And what I saw with the Balasants was their resilient spontaneity, even if they are like resisting to participating in activity. I'd never seen anything like that. Their spontaneous energy of resilience, because they can like completely fail terribly at something, and maybe even get scolded by one of the other Balasants or something. And so a normal kid would sort of feel bad and be out of it for a while. But the way that they're able to, they just flow, and they're able to speak straightly and tell things straightly. And if someone is doing something out of integrity, tell them it's out of integrity. You need to align to, like, it wasn't until I saw that. When I saw that, I was like, oh, this is how it's going to happen. It's going to happen through the Balasants, of course, because a kid has that playful, loving energy. Like you see 2-year-old kids, any kids from any culture, 2 years old, they'll love each other, right? You learn to hate each other. So when you can make kids live that enlightenment, they can relate to anyone, just like a kid with no judgment. You can't stop that. You can't stop that because they're non-violent and totally spontaneous. So you can't stop. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is how it's going to happen. So just from a teacher's perspective is, so yeah, it's been, I don't know, it's been exciting and great, and I'm eternally grateful, and I never would have expected this, but it's the best thing that ever could have happened, even though, you know, for whatever reason, my being took a different path. I mean, that's the way it is. But yeah, it's, thanks for providing a listening space. It's fun to share these things. So
yeah, you're welcome. You sure welcome. So you guys, do you all Gauri Bataya, Shanti, Daya, you have any questions, or we have to go to the next segment of the program, or how are we doing? You know, Gauri Bataya.
I'm all good here. I mean, we can go to the next segment.
Okay, super, very good. So then that's an awesome story. That's for today. Then why I became Hindu, or how I became Hindu from Sri Nitya Gyanatmananda, and he's become Swamiji's disciple. and public calling Swami Nityananda. We all fondly calling Swamiji. Okay, so that's awesome. And then shall we all close with a prayer? That's a great story. Yeah. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tatsat Sarvam Sadguru Padka Arpanamastu. Om Nityanandam. Thank you, Swamiji, for everything.